Welcome to this session here at the 2021 Layer 123 World Congress. I will be talking about Secure Access Service Edge, otherwise known as SASE, which seems to be the latest hot buzzy technology out there. However, fundamentally, SASE is just the integration of security and networking services with a focus on supporting the delivery of cloud applications. This new, but at the same time old technology is the latest way of approaching the mashup of cloud services, networking, and security. Based on the continuing swirl in the industry, it is clearly something that has far-reaching potential to forever change how we think about the delivery of networking and security services in support of applications and end users. Let me first share a bit about who I am. My name is Beth Cohen, and I am a software-defined networking and edge product strategist for Verizon. I develop and launch some of the most advanced networking products in the market today. A sample of the products I work on includes several SDN products and services. One such product is Virtual Network Services, Verizon's leading SDN product. I was also involved in the recent launch of Verizon Advanced SASE, our own offering in the rapidly evolving SASE market. So let's get started as we review how SASE is an integration of a broad range of security functions and networking services, how cloud and applications are supported, and how SASE could have an impact on enterprise network and security IT organizations. SASE is a new area for many technology people. It was only introduced as a formal concept by Gartner about 2 years ago. Since then, there's been much FUD and confusion about what it is and what impact it will have on the security and networking markets. In this session, I will first touch on some of the rather slippery definition of SASE. Is it primarily a networking approach or more a security play, or maybe something in between? I will also talk about what are some of the business drivers for this system. Next, I will discuss what are the components that are included in SASE and how they are supposed to work together. I will then review the rapidly changing market and who is leading the efforts to build products and grow the market. Then I will look at some of the challenges of adapting SASE into an organization, and finally, a quick summary of where I think this is all going in the future. What are some of the business drivers for SASE? There are two primary shifts in the business landscape that are putting pressure on networks and applications. Increasing security risk from ransomware and the growing sophistication of the bad actors, and applications migrating out to public clouds. As organizations move their applications both into the cloud and out to the edge, the need for more integrated security and networking becomes essential. Network traffic patterns change. There are increased opportunities for security vulnerabilities as the data traverses the networks. So, as you can see from the previous slide, things are changing rapidly. Here are just a few statistics and forecasted trends to support the need to pay attention to SASE. 54% of IT executives are prioritizing improvements in visibility and security for remote workers and cloud infrastructure. 60% of organizations are experiencing an increase in information security incidents. As the pandemic forced more remote workers and the network traffic moved out from the enterprise cocoon to the more vastly distributed model over public internets. And finally, 68% of senior executives say they are rethinking their long-term strategies in the post-pandemic environment. Some trends are here to stay, such as distributed and cloud-based applications delivery models. So it certainly makes sense to pay attention to SASE. Companies need to redefine how networks are managed and security is delivered. What's needed is a new comprehensive model that focuses on securing access to applications wherever they're located, edge or cloud, uses identity-based authentication combined with network security, and scales quickly while still being able to optimize both network performance and security. The question is that possible to improve network performance without sacrificing security? So in addition to all the business trends we've been discussing, there are also emerging technology trends, which are also driving the need for SASE as well. New and emerging technologies will have a profound effect on businesses and industry in the coming months and years. And in many mature organizations, the future is already here. Concepts like artificial intelligence and blockchain have quickly evolved from vague buzzwords to business critical applications. And digital transformation is happening at every level of the business, in every industry. Since so many of these emerging technologies are cloud native, it behooves us to approach protecting them in the same cloud native manner. That's where SASE comes in. Now that we have a better understanding of the business and technology drivers, I want to take a few minutes to talk about what constitutes SASE and where it comes from. SASE should be considered part of an overarching framework called NAS, or Network as a Service. It has many of the same characteristics and is also supporting a cloud-native set of applications and remote users. NAS is not a new concept. It's been around for over a decade, but has not progressed or matured in the way other cloud and software-defined services have. Partially that is because it is so much harder to wrap your head around what it should look like, and since it's by its very nature highly distributed, it's much harder to execute on the concept. So now let's get down to some brass tacks. This slide lays out all the components of SASE as I understand them to be. Specifically, any SASE solution should include the following basic capabilities. SD-WAN, through a combination of caching, application optimization, secure connectivity, and intelligent path control, SD-WAN helps improve the use of the network resources to optimize the applications. Secure Web Gateway. Secure Web Gateway provides threat prevention and airtight internet security across all users. And of course, Zero Trust Network Access for remote access, internal networks, and cloud applications. And of course, it can defeat the network-based attacks from unauthorized users and devices. There is some debate, however, related to what the network component of SASE should be. While Gartner defines SASE as mandating the use of cloud edge for a significant portion of the networking and security device services provided, some SASE use cases still require a portion of the services to be delivered locally, specifically the SD-WAN capabilities for application traffic steering between access links. Over time, it is expected that SASE offerings will continue to migrate so that larger portions are hosted from within the cloud. Let's not forget another key component, which is the centralized portal to enable more self-service and integrated network and security policy and enforcement mechanisms. So, in a nutshell, at the technology level, there is little new in SASE. What is new, however, is the way that it is packaged and delivered to be used by end users. So let's think of SASE is, or should be, network plus security plus the easy button. So another critical component is that SASE should be considered as an end-to-end capability. Born in the cloud, it should be deliverable over any transport or network and support the endpoints or users wherever they are located. Let's take a look at the high-level view of how SASE would look from the network perspective. On the left side of the diagram is the cloud components and the applications. On the right side are the end application delivery locations. In the middle is the transport and security gateways. As you can see from the diagram, except for the remote SD-WAN nodes, the majority of the SASE components are located and managed from the cloud. Now that we have a better idea of what SASE is and what it is made of, I want to talk a bit about the market landscape. The SASE market is so volatile that it is really hard to make any kind of prediction about where it will be going over the next 12 to 18 months. What I've been seeing is difficulty in three areas. One is the basic ability to evaluate products and services. So many of the SASE offerings seem to be more repackaging of products in a vendor's existing portfolio rather than new, let's say, SASE native. I'm not too worried about this as SASE matures. Vendors will be developing the more integrated tools that make SASE a real product. Did I mention that the market is mature or is immature? The biggest issue here is that each of the vendors can choose to define SASE to best match their own product strengths, leaving the buyers of such services more confused than ever. And finally, as a buyer or integrator of SASE services, you will have to make hard decisions based on little information and much risk. Since most buyers are already invested in many of the SASE components already, albeit not as SASE, of course, You will need to ask yourself if now is the right time or waiting a bit might make the decisions easier. Yeah, at the end of the day, it's not your imagination. SASE is pretty much at the peak of the hype cycle, making it that much harder to figure out the right move for your organization. On the right side of the slide is one way of looking at the SASE market segments. While this is completely subject to change as the market matures, we are seeing SASE needs falling into four loosely aligned buyer types. One, 3 easy, I like to call it. That's the SMB mid-market. Those are the people who want to just buy it, forget it, just not have to worry about it. The second market is companies that are vendor loyal. So that's where they've been invested in a vendor, and that's driving their SASE decision about which vendor they're going to go with. The next is the best of breed. These are very technology focused type companies that want to get the best match for what they're doing. And then finally, business driven. They're the most pragmatic and value focused. They're probably the most difficult market to address with the current SASE offerings. So to help with the decision on how and when to deploy SASE, there are some guidelines and questions that might help. First, are you ready for SASE? Are most of your applications in the cloud? Do you use SaaS applications, or are you more of a do-it-yourself type shop? How multi-cloud is your portfolio? Do you need a tech refresh for your network and your security? Maybe SASE is a good thing to bring in to replace what needs to be replaced anyhow. Do you have gaps in your security portfolio, i.e. endpoint protection and firewalls are not SASE? Are you interested in a more fully hosted solution, or do you want more control over the deployment and services? Then let's ask the other question, is SASE ready for you? Does the vendor have a full suite of well-integrated solutions, or is their SASE more repackaging of their existing portfolio? Is the SASE solution well balanced with both network and security components? Is there an integrated portal that makes it easier to consume the SASE services that you need? And finally, how cloud native is that solution? Now that we have a better understanding of what SASE is and why it is important, I want to touch on the often overlooked aspect of the SASE solution that is rarely part of the overheated and breathless definition and product conversations. How does SASE fit into the supporting infrastructure of a business? Are businesses, in fact, fully prepared to embrace SASE? I would argue that for the most part, they are not. In the majority of modern enterprises, security is often the responsibility of the CISO, or the Chief Security Officer, who might or might not report to the CIO. Even if security is under the CIO's domain, networking and security are rarely close enough in the organizational reporting structure for them to feel a need to work closely together. This often means that any discussion of SASE leads to awkward conversations about who has the authority and responsibility for support and management of a SASE deployment, since it does have networking and security components. This is not the first time that technology has forced organizational changes, and this will certainly not be the last either. As you can see from the diagram, one of the first transformations took place about 20 years ago, when groups responsible for managing the data and telecom networks merged. In hindsight, it is obvious that the technologies were converging, but at the same time, it was a major source of organizational friction that disappeared once the organizations were realigned. As SASE becomes more accepted as the right approach to solving many service delivery issues, I predict that at some point, the security and networking functions will be more closely aligned at the organizational level. Some of the ways that SASE can facilitate these changes include forcing the groups to have mutual understanding of both security and networking technology stacks. That means some cross-training, guys. Using SASE's cloud-native architectures to allow for a more holistic approach to application service delivery. Again, applications, networking, and security, they all have to talk together. It's sort of fundamental. So, how does this translate to the SASE adoption journey for the enterprise? We are just at the beginning of the journey, so it's important to remember that sometimes you need to start by crawling. While, as we've seen, there are lots of vendors who say they have a SASE offering, The reality is that SASE is still very much of an emerging way of thinking about security and networking. So too often, an enterprise wishing to take advantage of SASE doesn't have the organizational support in place to properly do that. My recommendation is to start simple. With the application in the cloud and the end users remote, the distributed networking and security model is already here. It is more a matter of getting started by putting something in place, even if it's not perfect, or even something that's labeled SASE. Over time, the market will shake out and there will be more options, be they multi-vendor or single vendor. That remains to be seen. No matter how SASE turns out, it's often a powerful tool to not start taking advantage of it now. So, as with all software-defined technology these days, you can always plan on swapping it out with newer technology in the future, which there certainly will be. Thank you again for listening to this presentation. I hope you have found it interesting and enlightening. There will be a Q&A session following.